I'm Cherylanne Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 130 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And y'all, today's episode is so important. This is one that I want you to make sure you're really in a place where you can let it sink in. This is one that I hope you will come back to again and again whenever you need a reminder. Because today we are talking about emotional resilience, and the big idea behind this episode is that how you feel is dictated by what you think. So if you don't believe me, if you need a little evidence to back this up, I want you to imagine for just a minute that you had never heard of the coronavirus. You'd never heard of it. How would you feel today? And there's your proof. There's your proof that the way you feel is dictated by what you think, by the information that you have access to and the thoughts you have about that information. It manifests in the way that you feel. So while I am definitely not advocating that you stick your head in the sand and pretend not to know what's going on in the world, just learning that you have more control over how you feel than you may have realized can be a really big step forward. And it is so important, maybe now more than ever. So when you want your emotions to be serving you, right, and not hurting you, the question is, what do you do? It's like it sounds good in theory and we want to believe it's true, but what do you do, practically speaking, to really wrestle back control over your emotions and therefore over the actions that you take as a result? And I am going to speak to that in 3 really simple steps that you are going to want to come back to as many times as you need to. You may need to revisit these 3 things many times a day. You may need to revisit them several times a week, right? These are things that I have been thinking about and playing with and practicing for years now. And they have served me so well during this particular moment in time. And I really want to make sure that I get these ideas into your hands and into your mind as well. Okay. So it is totally normal for you to be feeling extra emotional right now. It is absolutely normal. There is a lot of new information coming at us. There is a lot of change that we are processing. There is a lot of loss of what we thought would be, and we now know will not be, right? There are so many things to be emotional about right now. So if I want to acknowledge that that's really normal, but I want to give you back some tools that you can use so that you feel better, so that your emotional well-being is strong during this time, okay? So the first thing you want to do when you want to develop emotional resilience is learn how to calm your mind. Learn how to calm your mind. Here's the thing. You cannot think your way through a situation when your brain is in fight or flight mode. When you feel that you are presently in danger, then your brain stops thinking. It gets short-circuited and you are operating on instincts, survival instincts, okay? But if you're not in immediate danger and your brain is just processing information as though you are, you can actually be paralyzed or taking inappropriate actions. So we have to get your brain back in gear, right? Back in a gear where it can be useful to you. And to do this, you really need to activate you ready for this? This is a big word, your parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I will be honest, until maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I had never heard of my parasympathetic nervous system. So I was doing some work with an integrative medical practitioner, and it was the first time that I heard about this, which is essentially the body's counterbalance to your nervous system. So your nervous system is what fires up and puts you in that fight or flight response. It's where you feel a little out of control. Your parasympathetic nervous system is the opposite, right? It's the control mechanism. It's the one that brings you back to a state of groundedness and calmness. So if you've been taking in a lot of negative news, right? Who hasn't? Then you need a sort of mental reset to get this cycle really moving in the right direction. So here are a couple of things that will help you calm your mind, calm your body, and get that parasympathetic nervous system operating. The first is deep breathing, right? One of the things that happens when we're in fight or flight is our breathing becomes really quick and shallow. So you want to take a few deep breaths in and out. In and out. And doing that 5-10 times in a row, as many times a day as you need it, is the simplest mechanism that you have to just return to your breath and start to calm your mind. There are more advanced measures that you can take to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Meditation is a really big one. So I know so many of you have been exploring meditation during this time. You've turned to the apps like Calm and others that are available to try to learn simple meditation techniques. Clearing your mind can be very, very powerful. Yoga is one of my favorite ways to activate my parasympathetic nervous system, to calm my mind. There is a mind-body connection that yoga activates. So first we move the body in a series of specific poses, and we allow that to have an impact on our ability to think clearly, okay? There are other self-soothing practices, things like a warm bath, right? Maybe even a warm shower, dry brushing, a walk outside, right? Where your feet are touching the ground and you feel yourself moving forward. All of these can help you, but the first step in order to have emotional resilience is to have tools that can calm your mind or clear your mind, because we have to be able to get back in the driver's seat. And getting in the driver's seat is really difficult when our body is in fight or flight, because our instincts, right, are driving the train at that point. We are not thinking our way through the situation. We are running on instincts, and those instincts may not be serving us so well. All right, so that is the first step. When you want to have emotional resilience, the tools to calm your mind are the first tools that you want to practice and ultimately master. And there are a million resources for deep breathing techniques, for simple yoga practices, for simple meditations that you can Google and look up. But if you want the very, very simplest one, it is a series of deep breaths taken as often as you feel like you need them to come back into your body. So maybe you read an article and the news that you read feels alarming and your mind starts to race. That is an excellent time to set it down and take some deep breaths, okay? Calming your mind. I want that to be a moment-by-moment practice for you, an awareness of what do I need to calm my mind right now. Once your mind is clear, now we're going to move to the second step, which is to manage your thoughts, okay? So we are programmed to really take in any kind of information that signals danger. It's a survival instinct, okay? So anything that's out of the ordinary is going to get our attention because your mind kind of says, uh-oh, alert, this is different than normal, therefore it might be dangerous, therefore assess it, okay? And we are in a heavy dose of this lately, really heavy dose of this. So you need to be extra vigilant. The inputs, in other words, the information that you take in is neutral, okay? Information is neutral. But then the thing that happens next is not neutral, which is that you have some kind of a frame that you place around that information. You decide either there's a positive story that you're telling yourself about it, or there's a negative story, or there's a neutral story. But the frame that you place around that story, around the information that you have taken in, we could call that your thoughts, really governs your emotions. Hey friend, ever wondered why you're so tired all the time? Why you need that afternoon caffeine hit every day just to stay in the game? Hint, you probably need more sleep. So I created something just for you. It's a special guide to help you stop feeling so tired all the time. I'll teach you my best ideas to move from exhausted to energized so you can live out your brilliant dreams. Head to brilliantbalance.net/sleep and get your guide today. You're going to love this. So, in order to have a regulator on your emotions, we need to go back a step and have a regulator on your thoughts. You want to be very, very aware of what are your thoughts so that you can take charge of them and ultimately so that you can rewrite them in a way that really serves you, okay? Look, two people can hear the same information and internalize it very differently. They can place very different frames around that information and therefore have very different emotional responses to it, okay? This can be a little mind-blowing when you first hear it because a lot of us kind of grow up thinking that information causes emotion, right? Well, how could you not be emotional? Look at this information. But it's really all about the frame that you place around that information, or maybe think of it as the lens that you're looking at that information through that governs your emotional response, okay? So once that pattern gets triggered, once you have a thought and it trips you into an emotion, your mind can run amok and continue to repeat and repeat and repeat that thought. It can get trapped into a pattern of continuing to look for the more dangerous and the more negative. It's like your brain forms a hypothesis, right, with a thought, and then it wants to reinforce that hypothesis. So it starts looking for all information that supports the hypothesis. And that's what can take us into that downward spiral. It kind of narrows our field of vision, especially fear, right, as an emotion, narrows our field of vision, and it becomes harder and harder to see the big picture and any positive or creative possibilities that are in front of you. And it becomes super easy to get honed in on a very narrow, very negative picture that we start to believe is predictably going to lead to one negative doom and gloom outcome, okay? So in order to have some protection around your emotions, we have to take control of those thoughts and shape them in a way that serves us. Now, there's two ways to do this. You can either rewrite the thought in a way that is more powerful, or you can choose to think about something else. So, for example, if you are choosing to think about a fear-based thought over and over again all day, and that is what your focus is on, is a fear of what could happen, your emotional state is going to be pretty junky. Conversely, if you can shift your thought to something good that's happening around you, to something that you're grateful for, to some sort of positivity in your environment, your emotional response will shift. So when people say, look, gratitude practices are powerful, this is why. Because if all of our thoughts are focused on lack, they're focused on what we don't have or what we can't do or what we haven't accomplished, we cannot at the same time look at all the things that we do have and we are grateful for. But shifting our lens, kind of moving the lens of the camera over to the parts of our life that are going well, to the things that are blessings, to the things that we're grateful for, can change our emotional state immediately, instantaneously can change our emotional state. So Left unchecked, your mind will chase these disaster scenarios, and it will keep looking for more information that you can take in to reinforce the inevitability of that disaster scenario. Intentionally shifting your focus to different thoughts can radically change the way you feel. Okay? So that's the second piece of this puzzle, is learning to manage your thoughts. First is calm your mind, because you can't even have control over your thoughts until you calm your mind. Second is learning to take control over your thoughts. And then there's the third piece. And the third piece is choosing purposeful actions. Okay? Here's why this matters. Our emotions drive our actions. So the way we feel in large part dictates what we do. All right. And many times when our emotions are running wild, we stop taking action altogether, right? We say, well, I can't do that, or we don't know what to do. So we're just paralyzed doing nothing. But this third point, choosing purposeful actions, is about staying in what I call agency with my clients. Okay. So not being a victim, but figuring out, what do you have agency over? What do you have control over? Doing what you can do in a way that serves you well. Okay. So you take action, even small actions, and you find purpose in those actions. Now, the very best way to do this is to look for ways to be of service to yourself and to others. Looking for ways to be of service to yourself and to others is what can help you choose purposeful actions. So I'm going to go back to this emotional part. If you take in information and then you have thoughts about that information, or you put a frame around that information that's negative, and it causes a negative or a fear-based emotion in you, you will likely not take purposeful actions that are in service to yourself or others, because those emotions cause us to want to hide from them or make them go away or numb them out. So we actually take actions at that point that can be self-destructive. They can move us in the opposite direction of where we actually want to go. Okay. But if we hit pause, right, and we get our mind calmed down and we choose the thoughts that we're having carefully so that they garner useful emotions, then we can take purposeful actions. And again, the very best way to take a purposeful action, one that you have full control over, is to look for ways to be of service to yourself and to others. So typically I would say, hiding out at home is not a way to be of service to others. Right now it actually is, right? Right now, staying at home and dealing with any discomfort that brings up for you is a way to be of service to your own health and to the health of others. But let's talk about some others. You could be a good listener. You could find someone who lives in your house or who you're connected to who needs someone to listen. And you could be a good listener over the phone, over FaceTime, over Zoom, whatever works for you. You can give someone the opportunity to talk through their own thoughts and feelings, and you can be a good listener and help them find that reframe as well. You could be of service to people by playing with your children, by just saying yes to them when they ask you to do something with them instead of saying, no, not now, I'm busy, right? You could be of service to yourself and to others by creating art or creating music and putting it out into the world. You could clean up your space, right? And bring a sense of order to the people who are living with you. In its simplest format, you could have someone have a better day, even if that someone is yourself. So purpose in our actions and choosing actions that are for good with intention is the third piece of this puzzle to have emotional resilience. Because if we feel like everything is happening to us and we have no control over what we think and therefore we have no control over what we do. And the narrative is, I just can't help it. I mean, what else am I supposed to do? That is how our emotions can take us under. And as soon as we start reclaiming a little bit of control and saying, but what if I could change that thought? What if I could choose a different action? That is when things start to move in the right direction. We start choosing things that are of service to ourselves, and we choose things that help us be of service to others. And then the entire spiral starts moving in a helpful, positive direction. So if you are feeling like you are getting battered around by your emotions right now, I want you to think about these 3 steps. What can you do to calm your mind? What can you do to manage your thoughts? And what purposeful action can you choose that is of service to yourself or of service to someone else? And I promise you, you are going to feel a whole lot better when this cycle is front and center in your mind every single day. That is all for today. Next time on the podcast, we are going to talk about managing uncertainty. I'm calling it What to Do When You Don't Know What's Next. Spoiler alert, our brains do not like this. Our brains do not like uncertainty. So I'm going to give you some tools for how you can manage the very high level of uncertainty you might be feeling right now, and same tools that will carry you forward through any period of uncertainty that you may experience in the future. So tune in for that one. Until then, come join me in the Brilliant Balance Facebook group. That community is stronger than ever, and I want you to be a part of it and to feel the support that exists in that community. Just go to Facebook, search for groups, and find the one called Brilliant Balance. Till next time, my friends, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.